Hello everyone. So welcome to a new series. We're basically going to be recreating Five Nights at Freddy's. I thought that would be an interesting thing and I've seen people would like to learn how to do it. So what I've done here is I've just using a blockout plugin. If I go into my plugins level design, I use blockout tools here. It was free at some point on the Fab market or the Unreal market, so you may have it. If not, you can just make your own walls from the built-in. So what I've done is done a really awfully recreated map of the Five Nights at Freddy's level, and here is the office. So the first thing we're going to do is this is based on the first person template. As you can see, it's just like this. So things are, we have the character which we need to get rid of. So let's do that. So in the first person blueprints, so in here, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the first person mesh because we don't need that, and we can get this mesh here and we can just set to hidden in game so we don't see it. So if we try it now, we have no mesh. Right, next thing, let's open in this mouse look aim. So this is Unreal 5.6 and we have these two here. Now we need to change this because we want to add a lock so that we cannot move left a full 360. We want it to be locked in place. So we can get rid of these two here. And what we're going to do instead is we are going to right click and say get controller. And then from here, we're going to drag off and do set control rotation. And we can put that in like that. From this, we're going to come off here and do get control rotation and then break rotator. From the Y pitch, we are going to do a minus like this. And we are going to put this minus into the pitch here, like so. Next, from the yaw, which is left and right, we're going to do a plus. That goes into the yaw here. Then we want to clamp the angle. So if we search clamp angle, I found that minus 75 for the minimum and 75 for the max works well. From the set control rotation, we can pull down and do make rotator. And then we can just put this here into the yaw and the pitch into the pitch, and the roll goes into the roll like this. But actually, we don't need the roll like this. So now if we try it and we turn left, we are limited to how far we can turn. But one thing we need to change is when we are moving, we don't want to be able to move because in Five Nights, you're just in a position like this and you turn like that. So all we need to do here is in the event graph for move, we can unpin these two. This is for mobile interface, and we can unpin the jump as well because we're not going to be jumping. So now if I put a start point here for the player, just there, and I press play, now we're in this position here. So we can't move, but we have our view like this. So that's the first thing. What we want to do next is to create the interaction trace. So this is going to be the way we can interact with the objects, like the lights on the wall and the door controls and things like that. So we're going to add that. So in here, in the first person character, we're going to create a new function called interaction trace. Click on interaction trace, and then on the right here, you're going to have a thing called inputs. So also on that, and we're just going to call this interact event because we're going to use this trace for not just highlighting objects but also interacting with them as well. Next, we're going to do a sphere trace by channel. And the reason we use sphere trace instead of line trace is line trace, you need to sort of be exact with your pointing. Sphere trace, you've got a bit of give to it, which I think works well with this game. Next, we're going to right click and get player camera manager. We want to get actor forward vector. And we need to multiply this and right click here and float. This is how far the trace is going to go out. So 275 I found works. Next, from the player manager, we need to get camera location and do a plus. So we add the camera location to this multiplied here. Put that into the end. The start will go into the get camera location. Radius, I'd say 5. And for now, we'll just draw debug like this. So to get this going, event graph, we right click and do event tick. So normal people don't want you to use event tick, but for this, it works perfectly fine. And we're just gonna bring in an interaction trace, and we've got our interaction trace. What we can do next is we can do left mouse button, and we can copy this again, and we can just say event interact. We will be replacing this point for a input action, but for now this works fine. So let's continue on with our interaction trace. So there's a few things we need to do. So let's create these in a folder. I've created a folder called FNAF here that holds the levels. So let's just do this. We can't move this one yet, but we'll move the main menu one, and then we'll move this one later. In here, I'm going to create a thing for interfaces, and then we're going to have art, and we're now widgets, and then blueprints. It's always good to set this thing up early, just so you have it ready to go. So in interfaces, we're going to create a new interface. So that's under blueprint, blueprint interface, BPI for blueprint interface, and we're going to call this interactable. Now in here, we're going to create some functions. So let's do that. We are going to create a on hover. We will need an unhover, and then we need a interact with object. So interact with object. Like that. That's all we need to do in here. So back to our interact event. From the out hit, we're going to break. We're going to do a branch, and we're going to say if it's a blocking hit, and the hit actor does object implement interface. So if it's both of these, we can hook that up. The interface will be our one we created, BPI interactable, like this. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to promote the hit actor to a variable. I'm going to call this hovered actor, like so. And we can just delete that for now. We just need that here. So what we want to do then is on the true, we're going to do a branch, and we're going to grab the interact event here. So this is if we're hovering an object and we've left clicked, we want to do something here. So on true, we're going to grab the hovered actor like this. We're going to right click and convert to a validated get. So this just means that instead of like coming here, grabbing this and doing is valid like this combines both of these into one here. So if the object is valid, we want to interact with object like this. Then we're going to do a branch, and we're going to say, is the hovered actor equal to hit actor? If it's false, we're going to grab the hovered actor and do unhover, sorry. False, sorry. And then we're going to set the hovered actor to that it actor there. Then we're going to check, is it valid? So for this one, we can use this because we want this pattern to set. If it is, we can highlight, hover the object, and then we can return here. What this does is if the object implements the interface and we've hit it and it's valid and we have left clicked, we're going to interact with the object and then do all the hover and everything like that. Okay, so if this is false, if this is not a interact with object, we're just going to run that into that branch there. So if I lift this up, you can see we just sidestep this. So next, if it's the hit object isn't a blocking hit and it's not an interactable, we're going to grab the hovered actor, convert to a validated get. If it's valid, we're going to unhover it. So if we've gone off the item, then we're going to set the hovered actor to nothing. And then we are going to return this. And that is everything for the hovering the actors. Next, we need a material. So in art, we can do materials. And then we right click on material, m_outline. I am not very well knowledged on materials, so I will post a link in the description where you can just go in and copy the link to the copy the nodes basically. So I'm just gonna bring these in like so. So the only change you need to make is click on the node here, the output node. The material domain should be post-process and just connect the lerp in like this. And then you can apply and save. Next, we can right click this and create a material instance. So m_outline, oh, it's done it, instance. Double click on here and we can change the highlight color to maybe yellow, and then we can just turn these off like this. So if I double check what settings I use this on 2, 1, and leave these two as they are. Okay. Next, to get the post process to work, we need to come up here and add a post process volume. In the post process volume, we are going to search for, first we're going to get rid of the exposure, because if I press play now, you can see everything lights up and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for exposure, metering mode, change to manual, and then press save. And then the max EV here, no, exposure compensation. So yeah, we turn manual on. There's one mistake I made. You need to search for infinite extent, and then we can turn on the exposure compensation and put it to 15. There we go. So the infinite one just makes it so the whole area now is covered in this post process. So now we just have this. It looks exactly like here and we don't have the light fading in. Next, we can search for post process materials and we can click add asset reference, and then we can choose our outline instance like that. So you won't see it because we have to enable it. So you can see our outline here, our trace, sorry, where we're hitting. So let's create a couple of actors. So in blueprints, we're going to create a blueprint class, BP underscore light switch. And we can duplicate this and call BP underscore door switch. So in the light switch, we're just going to add a cube. And then we're going to just shrink it down. So 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Let's make that maybe 0.5. And the width 0.3. If I drag this into the world, oh, bit of lag. Turn that off. That is because of I have something running. One sec. There we go. I had something running in the background. So we can drag in this light switch now. So it's a bit big. Let's put it, say, there. Let's make it 0.2, 0.05, 0.2, the height. There we go. So you have a little cube that represents a light switch. So in here, what we need to do is go to the class settings, implemented interfaces, and do BPI interactable. Like this. Compile it, and now if we click interfaces on the left, we have these three options. What we're going to do is for the hover, we're going to grab the cube, which represents the button we want to highlight. And we can come up here and do it's called a render depth. So set render custom depth. For the hover, we want to click the tick. And for the unhover, we want to untick here. So now if we try in the level, if I look at it, it gets highlighted. And just to show what we did earlier, is if we highlight multiple ones, it doesn't get stuck. And we are just highlighting what we are looking at. So if I look here and look away, it goes away. Like so. To test out the interact object here, we're just going to do a print string and say object interacted. So let's try that out. And we left click and we can see object interacted up at the top. One thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the animation blueprint because that's causing us to wobble around. So there we go. So this is just, actually there's one more change. If you notice when we hover, the outline is jittery. Like, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's jittering. To fix that, we go into project settings and we can search for jitter. And we can turn off this custom depth with temporal AA jitter. So now if I highlight, you'll see that it's just highlighted up. So what we can do here is, because I'm going to release these as a pack at some point, like the whole project, I'm just going to comment here and say interaction trace for objects with BPI underscore interactable, like here. And we're also going to do it for here. So I'm just going to make this like look a bit better. So let's do this like that. If you're wondering why my nodes look like this, it's another plugin I use that is probably the best one you can get, which is Electronic Nodes. I would recommend this one. If you're going to buy anything for Unreal, buy this. Okay, so, and then we have nothing else has changed here, and nothing has changed here. So what we have now is a system where we can look around, we can interact with our object. What I can do is just quickly show with the door switch. I can actually just delete this light switch here, or door switch here. We can just copy that and place that in the world like this. And then we can just move it here for now, go into it, and we can say door interacted. And then for this one, we can say light interacted. Now we have door interacted and light interacted. So we have the very basic setup. We have our outline for the door. We have our buttons we can interact with. We have our player locked in place with the movement, so we can look around, but we can't look left or right completely. So it's like you sat in the chair. Okay, so that's all for this. This is just getting everything set up that we need. So the next episode is going to be setting these lights to actually control the lights here, and the door switch to actually control a door. After that, the episode after that will be the camera system. So I hope this has been useful, and I'll see you in the next episode.